Hey there, it's Mike from Golden Goals, and today we're going to bust one of the biggest money myths that's been drilled into our heads for decades. You know the one I'm talking about, that you need $1 million, maybe even more, to retire comfortably. I used to believe that too. I remember sitting at my kitchen table staring at my savings account thinking, how on earth am I ever going to hit $1 million? Am I just supposed to grind until I'm 70 and hope for the best? But then I stumbled across some real data that completely flipped the script for me. And let me tell you, what I found shocked me. Because the truth is, the average retired household in America is spending way less than you'd think. And many of them are living pretty darn well. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how much retirees are really spending, where that money goes, and here's the kicker, how much you actually need to have saved to get there. Spoiler alert, it's way more achievable than you think. So, if you've ever felt overwhelmed by the idea of retirement, if you're wondering whether you'll ever have enough, or if you're just curious to see how your current lifestyle compares to the average, stick around. Because by the end of this video, you're going to walk away with a clear picture of what real retirement looks like, and the knowledge to start building a plan that actually works for you. Let's get into it. The real number: average retirement spending in the US. So let's get to the big question. How much are retirees in America really spending? According to the latest data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average retired household in the U.S. spends about $4,345 per month. That's just over $52,000 a year. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like a lot, right? But here's the thing most people miss. That's household spending, not individual. The average retired household in the U.S. isn't just one person. It's typically a couple, around 1.7 people per household to be exact. So, when you hear that number, $4,345 a month, it's not just one person's lifestyle we're talking about. It's a combined figure for two people, often a married couple sharing their lives and their expenses. And this is where I want you to pause for a second. Think about the narrative we've been fed, that you need a huge pile of money to retire. But when you break it down, the actual spending isn't nearly as sky high as we're led to believe. And that's what makes this conversation so important. Because when you understand what the real numbers look like, you can start planning with confidence instead of fear. The breakdown: where does the money actually go? Now let's pull back the curtain and see where all that money is actually going. Because understanding how retirees spend their money is just as important as knowing how much they spend. No surprise here. Housing takes the biggest slice of the pie, averaging over $1,600 per month. And no, housing costs don't magically disappear when you retire. Even if you've paid off your mortgage, you're still on the hook for property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and repairs. And if you're renting, well, that's a whole other story. Rent prices aren't exactly known for going down, right? Then there's transportation, averaging around $670 per month. And yes, even retirees have car payments, insurance, gas, and maintenance. The silver lining is that many retired couples manage just fine with one car and they're not commuting daily, which helps a lot. Healthcare, this one's huge and only gets bigger as you age. Retired households spend almost $600 per month on healthcare, including premiums, prescriptions, and those out-of-pocket costs that Medicare doesn't fully cover. It's the wild card that catches a lot of people off guard. And of course, there's food. About $400 per month for groceries and $200 for dining out. Inflation hasn't been kind here either, but the truth is, food costs stay pretty consistent in retirement. You might cook more at home or treat yourself to the occasional night out, but the average holds steady. The rest, it's a mix. Entertainment, clothing, gifts, hobbies, the little things that make life enjoyable. So when you see that $4,345 per month figure, it's not one expense that's draining the budget. It's a combination of all these categories working together. And the more you understand this breakdown, the more power you have to plan your own retirement lifestyle. The Social Security Lifeline, how it changes the game. Now let's talk about the game changer in all of this: Social Security. Here's where things get really interesting. The average monthly Social Security check is around $2,000. If both you and your spouse are collecting, that's about $4,000 per month. And guess what? That's almost enough to cover the average retired household spending of $4,345 per month. Think about that for a second. With just two Social Security incomes, you're already this close to the average, and that means you don't necessarily need $1 million nest egg to retire comfortably. Let me tell you a quick story about a couple I know. Let's call them John and Linda. They both worked average jobs. John in construction, Linda as a teacher. They retired in Texas, had about $150,000 in savings, and a modest home they owned outright. Between their Social Security checks, they bring in just under $4,000 a month. And you know what? They're doing just fine. They've cut back on some luxuries, sure, but they travel a little, see their grandkids, and live a life they love. It's not about being rich. It's about knowing your numbers and planning smartly. And here's the kicker. If you've got even a small amount of savings on top of Social Security, say $100,000 invested, you can use the 4% rule to withdraw an extra $4,000 a year. That's enough to fully bridge the gap and match the average spending. Suddenly, retirement doesn't feel so impossible, does it? The 4% rule explained how much you really need to retire. All right, so let's tackle the million-dollar question that's probably bouncing around in your head right now. Mike, if the average retired household spends over $52,000 a year, how much do I really need to save to make that happen without running out of money? Here's where the 4% rule comes in. It's one of the simplest yet most powerful tools in retirement planning. And no, it's not some Wall Street secret only the pros know about. Here's the deal. The 4% rule suggests that if you withdraw 4% of your retirement savings every year, adjusted for inflation, there's a very good chance your money will last for at least 30 years. It's not perfect. Nothing in finance ever is, but it gives us a solid starting point. So let's do the math together. If you want to generate $52,000 a year from your savings alone, you'd need about $1.3 million saved. That's the raw number. And I know for some of you that sounds massive, like climbing Mount Everest without oxygen. But here's the thing. Most retirees aren't relying entirely on their savings. Remember what we just talked about with Social Security? If you and your spouse are bringing in around $48,000 a year from Social Security alone, you only need to cover the gap, about $4,000 a year. And to do that, you'd need just $100,000 in savings to make it work with the 4% rule. Suddenly, the mountain turns into a hill. Let's take it a step further. If you're a single person relying on one Social Security check, around $24,000 a year, and you want to hit that $52,000 spending target, you'd need to make up about $28,000 yourself. Using the 4% rule, that would mean roughly $700,000 in savings. But remember, this isn't a one-size-fits-all formula. The 4% rule gives you a framework, but your real retirement number depends on your lifestyle, your expenses, and how much you're counting on Social Security. The key is to understand the numbers and build a plan that works for you. And speaking of plans, there are some wildcards we have to talk about. The wildcards? Taxes, healthcare inflation, and lifestyle choices. Now let's be real, no matter how carefully you plan, retirement comes with a few curveballs. And if you don't account for them, they can sneak up and mess with your whole game plan. The first wild card? Taxes. And here's the thing. There's no simple one-size-fits-all answer here. Your taxes in retirement depend on where your money's coming from, whether it's Social Security, a 401k, an IRA, or a taxable brokerage account. It also depends on your state. Are you retiring in Texas or Florida where there's no state income tax? Or are you in California where taxes can eat a big chunk of your retirement income? The point is, taxes will play a role, but often retirees pay less than they expect, especially if most of their income is coming from Social Security or tax-advantaged accounts. Next up, the big one, healthcare costs. Let's not sugarcoat it. This is the wild card that makes a lot of people nervous, and rightfully so. On average, retirees spend nearly $600 a month on healthcare, and that number only climbs as you get older. Medicare helps, but it doesn't cover everything. Prescriptions, dental, vision, long-term care, it adds up. And with healthcare costs rising faster than inflation, it's one of the biggest risks to your retirement budget. That's why it's crucial to factor it in when you're doing your planning. And then there's the wild card that's entirely in your control. Lifestyle choices. Let me tell you about Jane, a client I worked with a few years ago. She was a teacher, never made more than $60,000 a year, and she retired at 48. No, she didn't win the lottery. She didn't have a massive inheritance. What she did have was a clear vision of what she wanted her life to look like. She downsized to a tiny home in the mountains, cut unnecessary expenses, and prioritized experiences over stuff. Her retirement budget? About $28,000 a year. She's not traveling the world in first class, but she's happy, healthy, and free. That's the thing most people miss. Retirement isn't just about the numbers, it's about your choices. Do you want a life of travel, fine dining, and luxury? Great, plan for it. Or are you someone who values simplicity, time with family, and a slower pace of life? That's awesome too, and it means you might not need as much as you think. At the end of the day, it's your retirement, your rules. But you can't make smart choices until you understand the numbers. And now you do. Your retirement, your rules. Designing a life that works for you. So here's the real takeaway. Retirement is not a fixed destination. It's not a rigid number you have to hit. And it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all lifestyle that someone else can define for you. Retirement is a choice. It's a design project. It's your life, your rules. Some of you might dream of traveling the world, first class all the way, and sipping wine on the beaches of Greece. Others might want a simple, peaceful life, gardening, spending time with family, maybe volunteering in your community. And some of you might even love your work so much that you never plan to stop completely, and that's okay too. The truth is, you don't need to chase someone else's version of retirement. You need to figure out what makes you feel alive. What brings you joy, purpose, and peace? And once you know that, the money part becomes a tool to help you get there, not the goal itself. Because here's the thing. There are people living incredible lives in retirement on less than $30,000 a year. And there are others spending well over six figures and feeling unfulfilled. The key difference? The ones who are thriving aren't just looking at their bank accounts, they're looking at their values, their priorities, and the choices they make every single day. So ask yourself, what does your dream retirement look like? What do you really need to feel content and free? It's a deeply personal question, and it's one only you can answer. Let's wrap this up with some action steps you can take today. First, forget the noise about needing $1 million or more to retire. That might be true for some people, but for many it's not. The average retired household in the U.S. spends about $52,000 a year, and for a lot of folks, Social Security alone comes pretty close to covering that. Add in a modest nest egg, even just $100,000 or $200,000, and you might be in a solid position to retire comfortably. Second, understand your own numbers. Start by looking at your current expenses. What do you spend on housing, food, transportation, healthcare? Where could you cut back if you needed to? This is your blueprint. Own it. Third, think about the life you want, not just the money. Because honestly, retirement is more than just a financial formula. It's about freedom. Freedom from the things that drain you and freedom to do the things that light you up. And last, I want you to leave a comment down below and tell me, how much do you think you'll need to retire? Do you want the full $52,000 lifestyle? More? Less? Let's make this a conversation because the more we learn from each other, the stronger we all get. If this video opened your eyes and got you thinking differently about retirement, smash that like button, subscribe to Golden Goals, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because in the next video, we're going to break down how to maximize your Social Security benefits. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. This is Mike signing off. Remember, your retirement, your rules. Let's make it happen.